gentlemen, leprechauns, friends beyond the binary, welcome to the discourse for today, March 17th, 2023, i.e. St. Patrick's Day. I am your host, Tristan, who is the runner of the YouTube channel Step Back, which you can find at stepbackhistory.com. And I am the co-host of the podcast It's Probably Not Aliens, which you can find at probsnotaliens.com. I stream on Fridays at noon for 2 hours, and my work can be supported at places like Nebula at nebula.tv/stepback, patreon.com/stepbackhistory, Twitch Prime. If you have an Amazon Prime subscription, you get one free Twitch Prime subscription every month. And if you choose me, I get a little bit of a kickback, and it's no extra cost to you. And of course, the wonderful Super Chats, bits, and Twitch subscriptions that keep the game going. Let's see, what else? My latest video is called Okay, I'll talk about Ancient Apocalypse. That video has been doing absurdly well. It is my most popular video of 2020. It's my most popular video in a very long time. I'm actually scrolling back now to find. So it's a video that's 2 weeks old, right? And I'm scrolling back to find a video that has more views than it. And I'm gonna keep doing it and see how long it takes. Oh, that's close, but not quite. So the video is currently just over. Let me just get the number real quick, just to show you how absolutely wild this number is. So this video is just about to hit 80,000 views. If not, yeah, it's 80,000 views. And I'm looking for my latest video, the last video before that has 80,000 views. The last video before that has over 80,000 views is when white supremacists declared war on America, a video I released in November of 2020. So, yeah, it's quite good. Quite a successful little thing I put out there. Because, fun thing about Step Back videos is that views-wise, they don't do very well. They sort of, or when they first come out, they tend to have long tails. Anyways, that is all besides the point. My next video is on the Iraq War and media, and why the media was so complacent in the Iraq War, and features an interview with Noam Chomsky. So, all very exciting stuff. If you want to submit questions for the stream, I will put a link in the chat where you can go to the link and ask some questions for us to answer. And of course, if you are new, if this is your first time coming to watch the stream, please make yourself known. We have a very friendly community here that does a lot, that is very welcoming to new people. So, if you do so, I'm just gonna ban somebody real quick. So yeah, if it's your first time here, please make yourself known, say hello. We have a very great community that likes to be nice to each other. And with all that being said, let us get Mia in here. Very dramatic lighting. I need a reflector or something right here. Yeah, there you go. See, that looks better. That's Hello.
Hello?
Hello.
Don't seem to be able to hear.
Oh no.
For me, but maybe not for you. Hello? Now.
Hello.
Oh, you're so quiet for some reason in my ears.
One moment. Let me see. I am very quiet in the audio forms too. Let me see. Let me try. How do I shot web here? Okay. How's that? Oh shit.
Shouldn't happen.
Okay.
Well, I can hear you now.
Yeah, good pro tip, don't just crank up the gain and then talk into the microphone. There you go. Gain cranked. You'll now be able to hear me.
I love to crank gain.
Yeah. Hello. Please tell all the people on the internet about who you are and what you're doing here.
Hi, my name is Mia Mulder. I make YouTube videos that are fun, I think, sometimes.
I would say so.
That's basically my thing right now.
The number one source of YouTube videos I watch while at Starbucks.
Yes. I also do podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to Leechfest. It's a good one.
Yeah. So, how's being city councilor, or I don't remember what your formal title is.
No, that's pretty much it. It's tiring. I'm really tired and overworked because I work basically 2 jobs now, and it's not fun.
Have you installed the new stoplight yet on Thorvaldsen Street?
Oh, that's gotta go through eight different committees before we can talk about that.
That's good.
It's a lot of that shit.
So there's like this one place that I really want to have a intersection instead of just being a street that I have to like play Frogger across every day.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I mention it, and anybody who knows anything about how that happens, they're just like, that will never happen. You will never see. Your children will be dead before you see a crosswalk out on that street.
That's not incorrect.
Which is wild. I just want to not put my life in my hands to avoid walking an entire kilometer to get to the lights.
You can't. Because you gotta redistrict the zoning, and if you do zone redistricting, that has to be done in a very legal way. And if there's anyone who owns any specific type of land thereby, you have to do an analysis on how much it's going to affect them, and that might cost money.
It's true. It's also a street that literally separates 2 electoral districts.
Oh, then you're never going to have anything.
Yeah. Like it's one of those. It's you don't have this in Sweden, but like during elections, the like signs for candidates on one side of the road are different from the signs of the candidates on the other side of the road. But the thing is, it's like a 4-lane street, right? So I go up the street, and then there's this 4-lane street that on the other side of it is Starbucks, where coffee comes from. And then if I want to not run across 4 lanes of traffic stopping at the meridian in the middle, I have to go all the way to the corner, which is like 500 meters away. And so every time I go, I have to be like, all right, it's snowing or raining. Am I going to kill myself by trying to cross this street?
Yeah. Like you could very easily set up one. Honestly, like from my experience now, I would honestly almost I'm almost at the point now where I'm advocating for people to just put up their own crosswalk. Like if someone in the middle of the night just came and put up a sign and like did the street, like painted it on the street and just did that themselves.
Just made like a fake traffic light.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like if someone did that, I honestly think that would be way more successful because I now that I know a little bit about like how that actually works, odds are the people like working for like the fucking street design commission, they're gonna be like, oh thank God we didn't have to do it.
Yeah. Wait, Tristan, you're in London, Ontario. Yes. Or as Jason Slaughter calls it, fake London. Yes. I got what's it called? I ran into Jason Slaughter on a Discord conversation, and we got to talking about London, and like we got in trouble from the mods because we were having a conversation in an inappropriate channel because we were just complaining about how badly designed London is. But yeah. So you're suggesting guerrilla, or should I say direct action based city design?
Yes. Because what's going to happen is they're going to figure out that it's happening, but they're also going to be like, as long as no one tells anyone, this can just be what it is now.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are paths, like there are whole ass buildings in my municipality that someone just built one day, like no permit, and they've just been up for like a long time. No one's complained, so it hasn't been a legal issue. If someone were to complain, it would be a whole thing, but no one wants to make it into a whole thing. So people have just started adding it to fucking zoning permission maps. It's just like de facto.
Especially if you have to deal with stuff like Stockholm, because Stockholm's like over 1,000 years old, isn't it?
Yeah, but I live on the outskirts of Stockholm.
True, but also the outskirts of Stockholm also used to be random villages and things. So like, there's just like, yeah, you like we need to build a street, and we're going around this building. Sorry, yeah, that building is older than Christianity, so you can't. And you're like, fuck.
Oh, you underestimate how much we demolished back in like the 50s. Back in the 50s, we like Stockholm city planners were like, let's just destroy all of it. Let's just demolish all the old buildings, except for the ones in like on the tiny islands in town, in the middle of the city. So that's Old Town now, and everything else was demolished for the People's Home, the People's Republic of Sweden.
Fair. It reminds me, what's it called? We're actually at a like. I'm listening to this podcast that says History of the 30 Years War. And I find a very funny thing where it's like the big cliffhanger at the end of the episode I just listened to was, and now the Swedes have arrived. Dun, dun, dun. And I'm like, oh no. No, not the Swedes.
Yeah, that's not good.
I guess it looked like the Catholics were going to win, and then those dang Swedes show up. All right, let's see what we got here. Somebody, yes, my semi IRL friend Andres is here in chat to remind me of my extremely terrible Jackbox answer from Wednesday. Hello. Very fun times. Have you ever played Jackbox games? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I played like it was one of those things that was like the thing you would do in 2016 if you had friends over.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't played it in a couple of years now though, but it's fun.
Do you know the one where they give you a problem and you have to improv a solution to the problem and then give a presentation at a fake thing?
The invention thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's fun.
So we were playing it on Wednesday, and we got one where it was I love amusement parks, but I don't like how it's so full of kids. So we had to invent solutions to theme parks with kids, and I won
Disney
with
XXX.
Disney XXX, which is just the pornography Disneyland. It's Disney that fucks. That was this tagline.
Yeah, and all the material was already made by dedicated artists on the internet.
Yeah, it just what's it called? It's just they just commission a bunch of people from DeviantArt and Rule 34 land. Oh god.
Rule 34 land would be the worst place in the world.
The worst place on earth. It's the only theme park that was open that got shut down by the police before it opened.
You know how sometimes when you go to like a theme park or a zoo, they'll take a picture of you like when you walk in, and then you get the picture when you leave the zoo. They do that at Rule 34 land too, but they just make porn of you.
Of course, so that you are officially Rule 34.
Exactly.
Perfect.
If you slip in there, someone just speeds draw like hentai of you as you enter the theme park.
Yeah, they just go to the grounds around the Eiffel Tower once a day, and they just scoop up all the random caricature artists and drop them off at this theme park.
It's actually quite horrific.
Mm-hmm. It's a nightmare. It's a waking nightmare for all involved. That was the Photos review, actually. Other things to talk about with you is because I know you're behind on Star Trek, but unfortunately, Picard had one of the most heart-wrenching, horrific, but beautiful twists in the story ever last week. or yesterday on Thursday, and I can't.
Did he die?
Picard's he died in season 1. He's a robot now or something.
Oh yeah, fuck.
No,
that's true. He's a bad robot that will die.
They brought back a long forgotten character, and they were not. This person was not advertised. There was no previews about this character. They just showed up, and it was like one of the big unresolved conflicts of TNG that like was just heartbreaking.
I'm looking this up right now.
I don't want to spoil it for you though.
I don't like. It's gonna take a while before I can actually come back to do this, unfortunately.
Okay, do you want me to tell you?
Yeah, fuck it.
They had Ensign Rowe come back.
Oh, that's fun.
And that somehow she got back into Starfleet.
That's nice. That's good to hear.
They brought back Rom. No, unfortunately, they did not have Ensign Rom.
See, that's what I was hoping.
The universe, first of all, there are 2 reasons that wouldn't happen. 1, the universe isn't ready for Rom to return. 2, that goes against the central premise of Alex Kurtzman era Star Trek, which is that D Space Nine never existed. It was a TV. It was not. It's a figment of our imagination. D Space Nine is not real. It is there was no D Space Nine. It never happened. We do not remember it. There was TNG and then Voyager, and that is all.
One day the world will be ready.
One day, apparently they have a semi-canonical comic book where Cisco comes back. So it might be that they're trying to. I don't know. Star Trek is in a bit of a mess right now because they definitely were setting up a whole lot of stuff, and then a couple things happened. 1, they got some like massive budget cuts, and that's why they're like canceling Discovery and like doing a bunch of other stuff. But also the person that they have, like, Picard season 3 is very obviously that they're sort of setting up all of the pieces for the Section 31 show. But then the person who was going to be their like main character for the Section 31 show just got Best Actress at the Oscars. It's going to be way too expensive to make a show. So
yeah, that shows she's getting recast for sure.
There's a whole like, because you think about it, there's like, I imagine that there was a situation they're like, all right, I'm ready to do the Section 31 show, and then they're like, well, it's gonna take us a little bit longer to develop it because we're on our 16th showrunner for it, and she'll be like, all right, I'm just gonna go do this little movie called Everything Everywhere All at Once, and then Discovery was canceled. Yes, yeah, they hashtag canceled Discovery. To be honest, as the gayest Star Trek, it was also the most chaotic, and it was a bit of a disaster bisexual of a show. So it was always struggling to find its place, and but it did.
It did its job though, like by like bringing Star Trek sort of back into actually making new stuff, which is pretty good as a show.
I'll be forever grateful to it for bringing Star Trek back from the dead after 17 years of no content, and. Also, I give it a lot of credit because after Discovery's after Discovery, it seems like every show is going way too hard into the nostalgia mines. Discovery tried to do legitimately new things, and sometimes it was weird and not good, but that's true of all Star Treks.
Yeah.
And
God, I've been meaning to get back into like the modern Star Trek. I've just been rewatching Deep Space Nine because it's the best show.
It's pretty good. I would just watch that all the time too. But like I've heard that at one point they were talking about casting Alex Siddig to be in the Section 31 show, about being grumpy old Bashir, which would be awesome.
I'd love to see that.
Yeah. So, and of course they've also apparently been trying to make Avery Brooks come back for ages, but he has some strings attached that apparently they're really fighting against.
Ooh.
Avery Brooks's Star Trek, like they keep trying to bring him back, but Avery Brooks doesn't really act anymore. He's a professor who teaches acting. But he's like, there's only one thing that I need to happen if I come back, and that is you also have to hire Sirach Lofton. He has to come back, and there has to be like Jake has to be in the show. And for some reason they don't want to do that.
Yeah, because if they bring back Jake, they have to bring back Nog.
He's unfortunate. Yeah, Aaron Eisenberg.
And if they bring back, like, the world's not ready for that.
We haven't. They're either going to have to write what happened to Nog, or they're going to make him into a Polar Express monster, like they do way too much now on TV. So,
yeah,
that is the worst part of. What's it called? That is the worst part of the show with one of the worst things in Picard was the fact that they have a scene that's supposed to take place like 20 years earlier where they have Polar Express DH Patrick Stewart and Jonathan Frakes, and it looks horrifying.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah. This season though is really good, and even though I said that they have memory hold D Space Nine out of existence, the villains of this season is changelings. So.
Oh. Fun.
The villains are like a rogue faction that after the Dominion War stuck behind, and they've been like plotting to destroy the Federation for decades or something like that.
Silly ass premise.
Yeah.
They already did that in Deep Space Nine.
And there's even a scene where like they're talking, where like Crusher's looking over their biology, and there's like this little picture of Odo, and I'm like, Odo.
Well,
there's only one. There's one thing. So there's one thing about the changelings I think is very amusing though, and that is with the new technology they have for changelings. Now, when they turn into a liquid state, they look more like liquid flesh than they do like a 1990s really early CGI goo jello thing. But it does mean that
that's horrifying. Because like if it's liquid flesh. That's a very different vibe than the sort of like gelatinous energy that I was sort of like seeing in Deep Space Nine. Mm-hmm. But if that's supposed to be flesh, that's more like the thing, or like the blob energy.
To be fair, it's actually not awful. It's like okay. To be fair, there is a semi explanation for it. Like they're kind of different changelings, but that's a different part of the plot. Anyways. I was just imagining like a recreation of the last scene with Odo and Kira in D Space Nine, where he's like getting absorbed into the Great Link in the Gamma Quadrant, but it's just all flesh. Like it's just an entire planet of flesh ocean.
Oh God! Like I'm seeing a picture of this fucking goop. Ugh. That's honestly like horrific. I hate that.
They might have a reason, and it has to be that these changelings are different types of changelings.
Yeah. Oh. Jesus. I don't know. This is rubbing me the wrong way a little bit.
Oh. But it was cool to see like there was a bomb that had a countdown timer, and it had that like Dominion style text on it and stuff like that, and I was like, okay.
Oh, that's fun. Like a little bit of a reference. That's nice.
Give me the changelings are the main villains of this season, so they're like, and also Worf exists in this, so they're giving us a bit. They're giving us.
Yeah, I really need to fucking watch this last season. I keep saying that every week.
Also, very wholesome. We haven't seen them yet in the show, but very wholesome is that that LeVar Burton has been cast alongside Micah Burton, his daughter. And she's playing, like, Geordi's daughter. Because, like, 30 years in the future or whatever, Geordi has two daughters. And one of them is the helmsman of the Titan, and the other one is, like, his assistant at the Daystrom Institute. And one of them is played by Micah Burton, who is actually LeVar Burton's daughter.
That's fun.
Yeah. And it's also a very fun thing because her main acting gig before that is just a bunch of Critical Role stuff.
Oh shit! Oh, I know that person. Yeah, of course. Yeah. That's really fun.
Mm-hmm. And of course, and the other thing too, and I don't know if this is the case, but it does seem like they are grooming Seven of Nine to be more of a big character in the future because they're giving her some stuff, and I like that. Because let's be fair, Jerry Ryan got the shaft in the 90s.
Yes.
She was far too good an actor for the material that they gave her. You can tell that episode where she becomes like, where the doctor like possesses her body for a little bit. It's like, you're like, Jerry Ryan, you are such, like, this is the best thing I've ever seen. Why?
It's like when you get to see Brent Spiner like play the other fucking android. I don't remember his name right now. And they finally get to like emote, and they actually get to have emotions, and you get to see them actually like being really good at what they do.
Yeah.
But you never see that otherwise.
She had one of the best lines in Voyager, which was, you negotiated your way through an entire cheesecake, which was so great. Classic. Yeah. And so I'm glad that she's getting more stuff. But yeah, I keep up with this because I need more. Yeah. Apparently Lore is going to be in the new season at some point. They mentioned that. They had to find a way to get Brent Spiner back for another thing. So it's going to have Lore. And
isn't Lore like super fucking dead?
I don't know. I can't remember the last Lore episode, what he was doing. He was working with the Borg or something, wasn't he? I can't remember.
God.
But then
like late seasons Star Trek is like...
Yeah. They also mentioned that the Daystrom Institute is going to have like... is protected by some superpowered AI, and if I remember correctly, they're bringing back one of the weirdest comebacks I thought was going to happen. They're bringing back hologram Moriarty.
Okay. Sure.
Remember that? Remember that episode where the one-off where they did a holodeck episode where... Oh, no, it was 2 episodes. They did an episode where they tried to make a Moriarty who was smart enough to make Data challenged playing Sherlock Holmes, and then he gained sentience. Star Trek is too much of my life. I apologize.
That's okay.
I am an embarrassingly embarrassingly into Star Trek. It is literally like when I was a kid, my dad watched everything that came out. So I was there for TNG, Voyager, Deep Space Nine, all of it when I was like a child. Like literally, like I was born in 1988. So there was like Star Trek my entire childhood. It's embarrassing. Okay. Maybe we should answer a question or two.
Shouldn't we do that?
We sometimes do that. This is actually 28 minutes. This is kind of early for us.
Oh, damn.
So,
speaking of spaceship, before we go any further, have you played the new Stellaris? Do you play Stellaris?
I do play Stellaris. I have not bought the new expansion, mostly because I'm saving money, and I don't play a lot of video games anymore because I have about 90 minutes of free time a day.
I get that. Get that for sure.
I get about 90 minutes to myself every day, and it usually gets spent like, what am I going to do tonight? Oh, I'm playing a board game with Kelly. Okay. So that'll be my evening.
That's fun.
But the first question I got here is saved for when Mia's here. And the question is, what is it like to live in interesting times, okay?
Is that the question?
What's it like to live in interesting times?
Not great.
Help, I'm living in interesting times and I don't like it.
Yeah, I would love for there to be decades when nothing happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like...
I don't want to be in these years when decades happen. I want to be in one of these decades where years happen.
Yeah. Honestly, like, I'm kind of tired of it all. I don't know how everything else feels, but just like the constant onslaught of like news is making me like melt a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
The constant onslaught of like a U.S. state trying to like make it illegal to like be a woman, or like some shit happening in like in Ukraine, or or like some fucking shithead posts like stupid shit on like Twitter about trans people. Like I'm just tired.
Mm-hmm.
It's
And then our jobs are kind of tied to being aware of it, so you can't even check out if you want to.
I know, right?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of wish that I had a job where it's like that I could just check out of it. You know what I mean? That I could just be uneducated and uninformed, and I would love that.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of which, I don't know if do you have any thoughts on the Seymour Hersh article?
What? What's that?
Do you know Seymour Hersh?
No.
He's a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist who exposed the My Lai massacre and like, he's the one who he leaked a bunch of like really, really big explosive stuff for the U.S. throughout history.
Yeah.
And his most recent article, which is not being picked up by any major news source, is saying that he has enough evidence to show that it was a CIA operation in combination with the Norwegian government to take out the Nord Stream pipeline.
Oh yeah, I have heard of this. I've heard of this, but not through sort of the not through the news, but I've heard through it like through municipal media. Because we've talked about it. We talked about Nord Stream. Because it affects fucking power prices.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have heard that. That's interesting. What do we think about that? I don't really have an opinion on it. I'm not really sure that we know, but if it turns out that like my government knows, because it happened like very close to where I live, right?
Mm-hmm. You're in Nord?
I'm in Skyrim. So like if we find out that like the Swedish government like has evidence of this and is not leaking it, our current government is sort of like in the shit already. Like it's not doing very good at all, and this might just be the thing that breaks the camel's back.
Yeah. So there's
Finland is also joining NATO, by the way. Fun. We're not, because our government fucked it up, and like there's always been this idea that if Finland manages to join without us, that's gonna be like the biggest embarrassment of the current government, and now that's happening. So that's very fun.
Secretly,
but yeah, Nord Stream.
Nord Stream. So I'll say one thing. It's one of those sort of covert operations that to me seems like an extremely unforced error that will make things worse for a lot of people, and if it ever became public would be very embarrassing for the government that does it. So That being said, I think that I 100% would believe that the Biden administration would do something like this. It 100% fits their complete lack of understanding on how to do most things.
Yeah.
So, and also, the fact that the U.S. didn't immediately say that Putin did it made me think that they were trying to not draw attention to who did this.
Yeah.
They were like the whole part where Biden was standing around in a hot dog suit saying, "Look, we all want to know who blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. We all want to know who did this and spank them." But yeah, so I'll say one thing. One, I'm not going to like my Bayesian certainty of it is pretty low. It is one person with a very good reputation, but at the end of the day, it is one person. And unfortunately, this is the kind of story that every time something like this happens, the mainstream press doesn't talk about it until years after it's happened, so that it's kind of safe for the government to admit it.
Yeah.
So if it turns out to be true, at the moment I'm erring on like it's probably true, but I have very little certainty on that. And if I turn out to be wrong, I would not feel bad about that. Yeah. But also, I'm not the kind of person who is like, the US would never do something like this, because it's just stupid enough that it is completely within the US's purview.
Yeah. Because like, why would they do it? I guess it's sort of like to remove a bargaining chip away from Russia.
Because I think that, I mean,
to like force the hand of European nations.
Yeah, Europe. Yeah. So like, I think that like it does seem that in some countries in Europe there is a little bit of turning towards like, hey, can we get a negotiated settlement out of this before Putin's like, and like the fact that like Europe is basically like ridiculously dependent on diesel fuel, and basically like there's a huge Russia-sized hole in their entire fuel import economy.
Yeah.
That's hurting. It's hurting real bad. And they've tried. There's all sorts of fun ways that they've tried to get around that. But I think that if it's in Europe's interest to probably create a negotiated peace right now, that's my current thinking is that that's probably how the war is going to end up in the long term. I feel like Ukraine is going to end up being like Cyprus, where there's just going to be the Russian Republic of Donetsk and Luhansk.
Maybe. I don't like from what I've heard, it seems very much like there's no incentive for either side to withdraw from the conflict right now.
Yes,
because Russia has sunk way too much cost in it, right? Like Russia needs a fucking win or it's fucking gone.
That's why I'm saying.
But there's not really any point for sort of like Ukraine to like go to the negotiating table, because Ukraine is like obviously to end the war, right? But like Ukraine is getting more and more support than it just got before. You just got fucking fighter jets from fucking Slovakia or some shit.
Yeah, Poland, I think. I think Poland approved some MiGs or something like that. But yeah, but I don't think that it's going to end in like a treaty or anything like that. It's going to more end like Cyprus did, where there's a point where both sides just are like, you know what, we're not going to end the war. We're just going to sort of stop fighting. Because it's just not worth the blood and treasure, basically. And then we'll just have like a bunch of these unrecognized territories that, like the fact that, Turkey de facto controls half of the island of Cyprus. It's just a thing that exists because that war never really ended. Really, we just sort of stopped.
Yeah,
and so
maybe maybe. I'm a bit more skeptical to think that's how maybe like in the very long term, but like I think currently I just don't see any reason for it to stop, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
like I think currently like the incentives for all parties is to escalate, which is bad. To be fair, war sucks, but like I think that's sort of like where they end up being.
Yeah, I think 2023 is going to try and bear it out, because there's a couple things. So one, Russia tried to roll a gambit on Europe crying uncle because wintertime without fuel sucks, but then the winter ended up not being as cold as they thought it was going to be. So Europe kind of got lucky in that one. And then also that they would not be able to change their oil situation after the oil embargo. But I don't know if I just saw this thing about how Russia's oil embargo system works, and it's freaking ridiculous. So Russia has an oil embargo above a certain price. So Europeans can buy Russian oil if it's less than $60 a barrel, which is very funny because it has to do with like it's trying to Russian taxes or something. But the other rule is that they can't import oil from other countries if more than half of it is Russian oil. So there's been this thing where like a lot of West African countries, because West Africa has like a whole bunch of oil fields that in this transition, Europe has been making a lot of deals with. So like Senegal and Nigeria and stuff like that have been making fucking bank. One of the ways they've been doing it is taking big oil drums, filling it with 50.1% local oil, then a Russian tanker will show up and fill up the rest of it, and then they send it to Europe. And also sending it to India and China, where they then refine it into gasoline and then send it back as it's not Russian oil, it's Indian gasoline or something like that.
Yeah.
So, capitalism.
The economy, Tristan. The economy needs to move.
So that's where I like, in my mind, none of the powers that be, like the U.S. doesn't want to be like, Ukraine is like the first big sign of like, oh, the U.S. isn't a like hegemonic monolithic power anymore. There are powers that challenge it that it actually can't do much about.
Yeah.
And to Europe, I mean, you're actually European, so you'd probably have a better grasp at me, but the priorities are probably priority 2, siding with Ukraine, hoping they win. Priority 1, not going to war with Russia. And if they ever have to choose between going to war with Russia and supporting Ukraine, I feel like they will.
I think that depends on who you ask, actually.
Oh, okay.
Because like I agree that that's just the case for like most of Europe, and definitely for like most politicians, right? But do you remember that like a tweet from Alice that said that like every Swede, every Scandinavian has like a switch in their head, and if you flip it, they start believing that if you kill enough Russian soldiers, that's the way to get into Protestant heaven. So like, because I've seen significant amounts of people who are like advocating for like the military here to just like send over like soldiers to Ukraine to just fight on the side of Ukraine, which is an interesting proposition. No one here is like no politician is actually gonna do it. But yeah.
I'm surprised there hasn't been one neoliberal think tank yet that has extolled the possible benefits of dealing with climate change if we're dealing with nuclear winter. Like, maybe it would be good to have nuclear war with Russia because it will deal with climate change.
A small nuclear winter can perfectly like cancel out the effects of climate change.
A moderate nuclear war. We're not nuclear war extremists. We want a moderate amount. Like, there's radical pacifists who are insane who want no nuclear war. And then there are radical people on the right who want all the nuclear war. We're centrists. We want a sensible amount of nuclear war. Just a little bit.
A normal amount. Just a few tactical nukes.
So like, yeah, I don't know. It's tough. It's one of those situations where you can tell that there is two sort of ways of thinking about international politics. One that is old and one that seems to be what the new one's going to look like. And they're currently like fighting over which one is going to be the one that comes out on top. Like, is this still the sort of post-Cold War NATO leads the world in global security dynamic where they can effectively bully countries into listening to them? Or is this the new multipolar world that Putin's been talking about for years of there being great powers that the US can't just demand not exist anymore?
I mean, I think that's a pretty good way to look at it, I think, because like a lot of other nations are like, I feel like this is why Ukraine is very much sort of like it's become such a big thing that it is, because a lot of other because basically the idea goes, right, that like if Russia gets away with it, mm-hmm. that like incentivizes basically this pretty like long lasting period of like interstate peace that the world has had since the World War to sort of completely fall apart, because then it's sort of like then there are again incentives to go to war, which is why it has to be like as painful as possible for Russia to actually win. But then there are countries that want to go to war, or like there are political movements that want to go to war, and so they are the ones who are supporting Russia. But you end up in this weird situation where like in order to like prevent war needs to be fought, in a weird way.
Yeah, the post-nuclear
18th century imperialism, kinda.
Well, in many ways, the sort of post-World War II, post-existence of mutually assured destruction world results in us. I feel like that's the reason why we have so many non-recognized countries, because all of them is just how would things that would be the actual creation of countries like 100 or 200 years ago be? But you can't do that today, because if there are countries that exist that if they became countries could spur on nuclear war. Like,
Yeah.
Like Taiwan, as an example. Like, it's effectively its own country. If it ever actually became a country, it would literally be the end of the world. But, or yeah, like the West Sahara, or in this case, like Luhansk and Donetsk, or whatever. It's...
Yeah.
This is all based on a question that was like, how is it living in interesting times?
Sucks.
Sucks, man.
That's how it is. I don't know how it feels over there, but like, God, every time there's like, do you remember like a few months ago when like the grain shipments became like a thing? Like that was like a big news over here, like big grain shipments coming out of Ukraine. Literally, the price of food in my local grocery store would fluctuate based on the news about the grain shipments. Because if Russia's attacking the fucking harbor, that's bread. Like 10% price increase.
Ours is a weird situation.
That's just how it goes now.
Yeah, we're in a weird situation where what's happening with us is that we produce all of our own food mostly. But what happens is that, like, our thing is that our government, we have like 2 corporations that run all of our grocery stores. And basically they have just been saying Ukraine and inflation over and over again in order to jack up their prices. And our public corporations, so they're reporting like record-breaking profits as well. And there's this whole movement because the NDP is trying to get these CEOs to basically come and testify as to like why they're jacking up prices, but also making like huge profits in the same years. Like, are they just using COVID supply chain issues and the war in Ukraine to justify a jacking up the price of food, which sounds like it should be a crime, but it somehow isn't. Sobeys and Loblaws, yeah. But like the liberals and the conservatives are like, oh, we don't want to do that. They donate far too much money to us to do that.
We're having a discussion here in Sweden actually about like having food like setting food prices by the state to like force grocery store corporations to lower the price of food just because the food prices are so fucking high.
Mm-hmm.
And my party is in favor of it. My party is like pushing it because we're fucking hardcore lefties. But every fucking other political movement is just screaming about how that's communism, and
yes,
that's why we're never going to get anything done.
It is communism. That's why it's good.
Yeah, communism is when the government makes bread cheaper.
Mm-hmm. Does remind me,
and the cheaper it gets, the more communist it is.
Yeah. You know what? If communism is when bread cheap, I'm actually okay with that. That feels good. The other thing that this actually reminds me of another thing that feels very much more on the name of this show with discourse. So, do you heard the whole thing with?
Well, first of all, it's not called discourse. It's called like Díospóireacht.
That is the discourse in Irish.
Why in Irish?
Because it's St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, is that today? Shit.
Yeah.
That explains it.
Yeah. So this is like the peak discourse of the week, and it's extremely funny. And then there was a attempt for liberals to try and jump on it, and it was even funnier. So, Brianna Joy Gray. I don't listen. This is a rare Brianna Joy Gray W. Took a break from the constant search for Virgil, Texas, and instead interviewed this like reactionary social media account. This reactionary like creator, influencer, or author, or whatever.
Oh yeah,
and she was
couldn't define woke.
Yeah, who took 50 seconds to even begin to try and define what woke was. And it was very funny because it just showed out how woke is just another, it's critical race theory again, or whatever word they're trying to use at any given point.
Yeah.
Anyways.
That was a good clip.
It was. Great
like
clip.
Her fumbling around herself.
Yeah. But then the Daily Show tried to make a joke out of that, and then they were like, "Hey, Karl Marx, can you define what capitalism is?" And then have him like flail and not say anything for 50 seconds because he can't define what capitalism is.
Yeah.
But then everyone was like, "Bruh, somebody asked Karl Marx to define what capitalism is, and he responded by writing 4 books." Like his entire body of writing is describing what capitalism is. So I thought it was funny.
Yeah, that
I
was
like
fun.
when Karl Marx gets into a meme. It's a good time. But it was a very like. Yeah.
I feel like if you ask Karl Marx to define capitalism in a sort of like weird gotcha moment, he would just punch you in the face.
Mm-hmm. He'd be too drunk to bother with you.
He wouldn't hear you.
Yeah. Now I'm kind of curious. What did he actually die of? Was he accidentally sober for too long or something? I don't know.
Accidentally sober for too long.
Like, let's see.
Bronchitis.
What? Goddamn 19th century where you could just die of random shit. Uh-oh.